If you've ever been even a little bit curious at all about plant medicine, specifically psychedelic plant medicines, and the connection it has to ancestral healing, then stick with me because I promise you that what we're going to talk about today is not only going to take us deeper into the rabbit hole of this very deep form of healing, but it'll help you really debunk any illusions, myths, and also learn to really integrate the true wisdom behind what could be a very powerful path to your own personal healing. Look, it's super hard for me to even put into words right now the tremendous amount of change, of healing, of awareness and acceptance I've had to integrate, especially in the last couple of weeks. You know what they say, that what one teaches, one ultimately masters. So I am truly no longer even surprised that since I teach women how to heal and disrupt ancestral karmic patterns of emotional pain in their lives, that this work in turn continues to make such a powerful impact in my day-to-day life. In fact, this work is literally the catalyst for how many timeline shifts and miracles I experience daily. It's not even weekly, it's not even monthly, it's every single day. And as I was cleansing these last couple of weeks, like I do every single year in preparation for the summer solstice, I was also really guided to start a very powerful kundalini yoga ancestral healing meditation, one that I first started when I first began my journey of ancestral healing almost 5 years ago. And it was so interesting because as I started this meditation, I realized that the guidance I was getting was not from who I usually get it from, because a lot of the work when I started to do my ancestral healing was focused on like healing my mother's side of the lineage, because that's where I knew consciously a lot more of the trauma that had endured, a lot more of how the patterns that they had gone through, I was also repeating. But this time around, it wasn't that side of the family that was calling to me. In fact, it was my grandmother on my father's side of the family, which is something that has never happened before. And through this cleanse and through the practice of this meditation, I continue to realize a lot more about the Abuelitas, is what I call them, that guide me in my life and in my work's purpose. And also the reason why I hadn't fully been feeling whole and complete. Like if I felt like that there was something that was really missing in my life. See, these are really significant, important times in our lives where our soul signed up during this time and age where we have access to all these amazing tools, including plant medicines, which I'm going to talk about today, to help us self-realize, heal, and to take our sovereignty back from any of toxic patterns that no longer work for us. But with that comes a huge responsibility to not only harness the power of these tools, but to use them in a very conscious and effective way. And that's what I want to talk to you all about today, particularly how and why I had been rejecting my life's purpose in working with plant medicines as a curandera, just like my grandmothers, but also why it's so important for us to understand how these tools can help us, but how to actually use them in a way where we're gonna create lasting transformation and change, and where we can actually integrate all that occurs to us, especially during these types of experiences. So welcome, 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 Satnam. Such an honor to have you all here. If you're catching this live, welcome, welcome. And if you're catching the replay, always welcome. Thank you for keeping up with this work. Thank you for, as you keep up, we know that we shall be kept up. That is a saying that my teacher, Jogi Bhajan, would always say. And truly, you know, that is why discipline becomes like as important in your life as God, because the more disciplined you are in your mind, the more that you can master this entire thing that we call life. And truly, you know, we're living in such a pivotal time and day and age where we have access to these tools that at one point only gurus had access to, even plant medicines. I don't know if you knew, but back in the day, actually in the early 1900s still, in order for you to like practice work with plant medicines, especially like psychedelic assisted type of medicines like mushrooms or ayahuasca, you were not the one that would actually ingest the potion or the drink or the recipe. The shaman or the curandera or curandero would drink it, and you basically hung out in their auric field. And through that, you were actually healed. Now we're in the age of Aquarius. This is a completely different vibe, a completely different gig where we are experiencing divinity, God from within us. We are becoming the guru we've been seeking. We are becoming the shaman that we ourselves have forever longed to find. And this is why, because we're going through such a big, actually, revolution in psychedelics, and because we're going through a big revolution in the expansion of consciousness, I thought it was very important for us to talk about these particular pathways to healing, and to also look at what can be a big challenge and blockage, especially as it relates to ancestral healing, because I actually was experiencing that in the last few weeks. You see, when my grandmother, my Abuelita, from the side of my father came to me, I thought it was really weird because, like I said, I usually do not connect with her. She died when I was about 8 years old, so I sort of remember her, but not really. And the way she was communicating with me was actually through a toothache. And it was through a toothache in that particular part of my mouth and lineage that I first became aware that she was trying to contact me. But because I couldn't really understand what she was telling me, I mean, it wasn't just toothache. There were messages, like, for example, she came to my father while I was having the toothache, thinking about her in his dreams, and connected with him in his dreams. She came to my sister and during that same week as well, in a memory that had come up. So she was definitely trying to make contact with not just myself, but with people around me, so that we could pay attention to what was happening. So then when I received those messages, I immediately surrendered and I started to do the ancestral healing meditation again, which is the meditation that I started my entire work with. Back when I first started Kundalini yoga, I started practicing this meditation right when I was actually coming back also from the Peruvian jungle, where I had made a deeper connection with my ancestors. And so when I practiced that meditation, that's what started to open up my entire life path into what ancestral healing is all about, how disrupting the patterns work at the level of the DNA, and how Kundalini yoga actually helps us do that. So this time around, as I started to practice this meditation, I started to get a lot of visualizations and a lot of awareness. And one of the things that I did was, because of Summer Solstice, I always cleanse, meaning I kind of release and detach from like really high toxic foods or things that are polluting my body. I do a lot of fasting. Like right now, I'm going into a 3-day fast for the next 3 days to prepare me even more, because the summer solstice is a big portal. It's like a big window where you can do some major healing, major transformation, major evolvement of your consciousness. And so one of the things that I wanted to heal or wanted to detach from was my relationship and use with cannabis. Because for me, cannabis has been this relationship where it is the only plant medicine that I believe you can actually use to like numb or run away from, where I believe that you can build a toxic attachment to if you're not conscious and aware. In fact, I believe a lot of people are going through a lot of addictions to this plant, but that's not the purpose of the plant at all. And the thing about Kundalini yoga and the work that I practice is because I have a daily meditation practice. It's not that it forces you to be like a goody good tissue where you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't do anything. It's just that you start to become really stable in the nervous system and in the brain, where you kind of just become aware of when you're abusing these relationships, or when you are becoming codependent to a particular thing or something outside of you, which is what started to happen with my relationship with cannabis. It's like a roller coaster ride where I would respect it. But then when I was going through a lot of stress, which wasn't even like trauma stress, it was just the fact that my business has been growing. I've been really leveling up in all areas of my life. So it's not even like negative or bad. It's just demand and pressure. That's all it really is. But through that, my relationship started to become very codependent and needy of the plant medicine, where I decided that I needed to really cleanse and let go and learn how to use it again. And interestingly enough, as I let go of that use through the process of me cleansing, I received a lot of tremendous downloads. And see, the thing about this is that I would say marijuana would be the only one that you could get in trouble as it relates to that, because there's no way, and this is one of the things we're going to talk about right now about the myths of plant medicine. It's impossible. And show me somebody who has.
for you to use things like mushrooms or things like, I'm talking about psychedelic mushrooms, or things like Mother Ayahuasca or San Pedro, which is another psychedelic plant, as a form of escapism or as a form of you trying to numb out, because these plant medicines do the complete opposite. You lose control of consciousness, of your body, mind, and spirit. I mean, the barriers of your subconscious mind are completely shattered, and you're left exposed and vulnerable, having to face the reality or the truths that you've been hiding from that subconscious mind. So for someone to become addicted to those substances, especially Mother Ayahuasca or San Pedro or mushrooms, or for someone to continue to try to use them in a way where you're trying to go on a trip, not only can be very dangerous, but it can absolutely backfire. Now, that's very different from my experience of marijuana, which for me became a crutch, which we need to actually learn to understand that it can actually be a very potent medicine as well for healing. In fact, many times, at least 3 times, I've experienced very mystical experiences, heart opening, healing experiences with cannabis when I had a healthy relationship with the plant. So as I was cleansing and releasing myself from many attachments from the outer world, I received an incredible download without being in any type of altered consciousness at all. And this download came to me of the awareness of what I had experienced in when I recently came back from Palenque, from these Mayan temples where I basically practiced and was part of a temescal ceremony. So this was in January for my birthday. I went to Palenque. I've always wanted to visit the temples there, the Mayan ruins, and finally went this year. And very coincidentally, or synchronistically and by a miracle, I actually connected with these really beautiful Mayan teachers. And through this, I was led to a temescal ceremony. I actually did a video on my experience with the temescal ceremony, which you can check out here on my YouTube channel if you want to learn a little bit more about that. But in a nutshell, what occurred to me in that temescal ceremony was I had this vision of my grandmothers, my abuelitas. And I had a vision of lots of abuelitas that were dancing. Coincidentally, that day was also my grandmother's birthday, the day that I went into this temescal ceremony, and she just transitioned last year. So when I went into this temescal ceremony, they brought in what is known as abuelitas. And these abuelitas are hot stones that they put into the center of the temescal, which some people know as a sweat lodge. And then through medicinal herbs and water, it creates this steam that then cleanses and purifies you, body, mind, and spirit. And so when I went and I had this experience, I saw my abuelitas dancing, both my paternal and maternal grandmother dancing in happiness, very joyful. I've never in real life, when my grandmother was alive, had ever seen her this happy. I had never even seen her dance. But in the ceremony, she was dancing and she was jubilant and she was very, very excited. And with that, I saw a lot of other abuelitas that were there celebrating and rejoicing in this beautiful afterlife. And I came back from Mexico and I gave that message to my mom, which that day she had been communicating with my grandma also in her dreams and in ethers, which really helped her a lot. But it wasn't until last week when I was cleansing and connecting that I learned what that was all about. And I realized that what has been my guidance, especially since 2015, when I first went to the Amazon jungle to work with plant medicines, Mother Ayahuasca and San Pedro, when I had my 3rd ceremony with Mother Ayahuasca, I experienced what ancestral karmic patterns look like, how I was repeating them in my life. I also experienced this great gathering of las abuelitas, but I didn't know what that meant. I knew at that point that I was being initiated along with my family into the path of a healer, of a curandera. And I just didn't know how, what tools I would be using. I saw the support of these beautiful abuelitas, but I didn't realize how prominent and important they are and have been in my life. And so last week, as I was listening to something about ancestral healing, all the awareness just came to me of the abuelitas, not just my abuelitas, but as we do this ancestral healing, how all of the abuelitas of this world rejoice heal, and this is how we break generational curses. And so as I connected with that, I realized how these abuelitas are who is guiding me every single day in the work that I do. And even with plant medicine, I throughout my journey of healing, when I work with Mother Ayahuasca, coming back from the jungle, it was very, very difficult because I did not have an integration process we're going to talk about today. And this is why a lot of people will experience plant medicine and they don't have any lasting change or their lives don't change at all. They go back to their same programs. It's because of that lack of integration. But what I also realized was that there was a deeper wound that I've been carrying. And that this is why, especially for the last few weeks, I'm preparing for this really big 3-day event happening next week, which we're going to learn more about here at the end, which is open to all women. And something was missing. It was like I wasn't fully being myself. And also, I had taken the approach to cleanse and detach from a state of guilt and almost a way of denying these aspects of myself, like how important plant medicine has been in my healing journey. Mushrooms, Mother Ayahuasca, San Pedro, and at one point even MDMA, which I used for therapeutic purposes to heal my marriage. And the reason that I was so afraid to fully surrender to that or to even consider myself as a healer or as a curandera, which let me tell you, in my Kundalini Yoga therapist certification that I am now going through, it's a 3-year program. It's very intense. You have your own mentor, and these mentors usually are doctors. They're Western medicine doctors who are now Kundalini Yoga therapists and who teach these programs. And we have teachers from Harvard, from all over the world that basically now teach Kundalini Yoga as a therapy. One of the modules we focused on completely was differentiating the difference between a teacher, a therapist, and a healer, because there's a big, big difference. And when you think about psychedelic assisted psychotherapy, which is something that is becoming more common now because we have people like Rick Doblin, who has been doing the holy work on studying psychedelic assisted psychotherapy since the 80s, and now has these great advances where we now have the FDA in looking at psychedelic assisted therapy in its 4th stage already, meaning very soon, ladies, you are going to see clinics that offer psychedelic assisted psychotherapy that is now going to be legal because of the tremendous benefits and scientific research that has been done. When you think about that word, psychedelic assisted psychotherapy, basically what it means is it's a curandera, a healer. And even in my line of study as a Kundalini Yoga therapist, like I said, we have teachers. Like there's a really amazing psychotherapist that works for the University of San Diego who wrote an entire book on using specific meditations, Kundalini Yoga meditations to heal from really serious mental health issues like schizophrenia, bipolarism, severe post-traumatic stress disorder, severe trauma, and addiction. How this healer, because he's not a teacher and he's not a therapist, he's a healer, has connected to his ancestors, to the ancestors of the lineage of Kundalini Yoga, like Guru Nanak, who have connected with him to download to him specific mantras, specific meditations to help human beings actually heal. And that is what curanderismo is. It's the root word of curandera or curandero is to cure. To cure means to heal. And what we're understanding and accepting, and this is something that I rejected for a couple of reasons, which I'll share with you right now. It is one that is really being guided by the divine power that really becomes a vessel to actually be able to heal others. So it's the same thing as a psychedelic assisted psychotherapist, which now there are degrees that you can get to become a psychedelic assisted psychotherapist through MAPS, or even in Curanderismo. The University of New Mexico has it's a course that you can take on Curanderismo that teaches you the true essence of what this is all about, of what a curandera is and the healing modalities that can be used energetically. Because all of us, we take showers, we might cleanse physically, but do you ever cleanse your energy? Do you ever cleanse your body? And so the biggest reason why I was actually rejecting this part of who I am was because of all the fear mongering that goes around it. For example, my mother, does energy healing, but she does it on the DL because of what people might say or think. And her mom did it on the DL as well, because by that generation, they were already deeming healers as witches, which ultimately, let me tell you what the word witch means. The word witch means somebody who was connected to the natural rhythms of nature, somebody who could use the elements of water, fire, or whatever to heal others. It's somebody who has been empowered in her own divinity, in her own spiritual power to help others. And yet we were made afraid of these women, of these healers. What did we do? We burned them at the stake. We ridiculed them. We stoned them. And we made them feel like they were evil or less than because they had these great powers. And so what that is known as, it is the witch's wound, which is where your grandmother or great grandmother was basically crucified for her abilities to be able to heal with herbs, with her voice, with her touch, with whatever it is that was her power. And so at a deeper sense, what I was rejecting was coming out of a state of fear from that witch's wound of, will I be crucified? Will I be ridiculed because I now am stepping into my power? And especially knowing that I have simply become a vessel for the abuelas to work through me so that I can now help other women disrupt ancestral karmic patterns. So as I started to realize that that was what the fear that I was carrying, I surrendered it fully to the abuelas, to God, and I asked that I be released from this. And I continued practicing my meditation. And since then, it has been absolutely life-changing to be able to connect to the true essence of what I'm here to do in this world. And then to be able to find the teachers and the guides and the mentors that will continue to help me flourish in this aspect of the healing journey, because there is a big connection between ancestral healing and plant medicine work. And not everyone is made to use, especially psychedelic assisted psychotherapy or psychedelics in general. To some, again, it could be a huge psychic shock, especially if you're not prepared with dieta, meaning you haven't cleansed your body prior. And even worse, if you don't have an integration process afterwards, because that's exactly what was happening to me. When I went to the Peruvian jungle, I received so much awareness of why, what, and how that I couldn't embody it. I couldn't actually bring it to become something in my real day-to-day life. And in fact, when I came back, I was so much, we have two triangles in our energetic system. We have the lower triangle and the upper triangle. The lower triangle is what connects us to this earth. It's honoring ourselves as human beings in this physical body. The upper triangle is what connects us to the spiritual level, connects us to the divine. Some people might work through practices of meditation or even yoga to bring the energy up to the upper triangle so that you can be connected to the divine. But the problem is, especially when you practice these psychedelic assisted experiences, that the energy will rise to the top and it will stay there. Meaning that, yes, you might be connected to the divine and you might be seeing visuals and all these different things, but you're a complete mess in this physical form. You can't be around people. It's like these spiritual people that say, oh, I'm too sensitive, I'm an empath. No, we have a problem with your energy. The energy is stuck only up here. And now because of that, you're not honoring your incarnation. You can't even carry out a normal conversation with a human being. How is that going to help you or your lineage? How is that going to serve your dharmic purpose? I mean, unless you incarnated to meditate in a cave for the rest of your life, you are just doing a disservice to you. And that's why these practices can be very, very detrimental. They can be very dangerous, because if we don't realize that the energy can stay stuck, especially in the upper chakras, then we can truly create psychic shocks in our lives, and we can not return from these dimensions that we open up, these portals that we open up in the experiences that we go through in psychedelic medicina. So we have to learn to really understand that there is a growing trend and that there are a lot more people that are using plant medicine And there's a lot that can be said as it relates to the scientific methods that are changing, like the structure of the brain, even. Like, I don't know if you knew, but it has been discovered that hallucinogens like psilocybin, mushroom, it has these fast acting compounds that support the structural and the functional neuroplasticity of your brain. What this means is that brain cells and these pathways of programming of trauma can be reshaped in some cases in 30 seconds. This is how quickly the work can actually work on your brain to change these patterns. People with depression, anxiety, what happens, we often have a low level of serotonin, right? So all the people that also have post-traumatic stress disorder, low levels of serotonin. So what do these medicines do? They create functionality. They create the ability to release emotional stagnation, right? Because it involves creating more serotonin. They help you boost the level of energy and especially serotonin available to your brain cells. So it can do a lot of fast acting, very beautiful benefits. But what's missing is the integration part. See, you experience that at this moment, but if you don't have the maintenance and the profound ability to actually integrate what was shown to you, then you're just going to go back to your old program like nothing ever happened. That's exactly what was happening with me. Integration literally is the synthesis of the mind and the body following the experience of non-ordinary states of consciousness, which can be prompted through the use of plant medicine, but also even through the use of like kundalini yoga meditation, right? It is the process of exploring and sharing the challenges and the insights that arise during your psychedelic experience. That's what integration is. So if we don't do that, if we don't look at the feelings, the sensations, and the ideas that were brought upon during the psychedelic experience, then the process is not going to be meaningful. We're not going to have the level of healing or the level of transformation that I had. The reason that my life completely transformed and that I was able to heal my addiction to alcohol, to leave the 15-year business as a real estate broker, to listen to the divine of what my real dharmic path was here to do, was because I had the practice of kundalini yoga that allowed me to basically work somatically in the body, mind, and spirit to bring the energy from just experiencing life in the upper triangle to actually balancing out and clearing my lower triangle so that I could feel safe in my body and safe in this world. So this form of integration is really how to bring and embody these sensations that were created through these very life-changing experiences. And that's exactly what Kundalini Yoga did for me and for my family. Because when we came back from the Peruvian jungle, we were all going through our own levels of near-death experiences. And it was because our energy was so sporadic and completely all over the place that we could not ground ourselves into what had happened. So there is dedicated time that needs to happen in integration. And also, there also needs to be a full surrender to the capabilities and powers and gifts that are given to you in these experiences. Because like I said, for too many years, I rejected my path. For too many years, even though in my lineage, we come from a lineage of curanderas. For too many years, I said, I can't do that because of the witch's wound or because I hadn't fully integrated whatever it is that I needed to integrate. There are very many famous curanderas and curanderos in Mexico, all displaying their own gifts. The first one that I ever knew about that I became infatuated with immediately, and this happened before I even practiced or integrated Mother Ayahuasca, which just goes to show how much on the path I was already on. But my favorite curandera that I've always studied is Maria Sabina. And even though her story doesn't necessarily end well, the reason why I absolutely love her story, and she doesn't tell it, other people tell her story because she didn't even speak Spanish. So we're as close as possible to actually what happened. But the biggest lesson that I learned from Maria Sabina as a curandera who used psychedelics, mushrooms to help heal, many famous people came to her in the process of healing, was actually how to respect the plant, how to use it responsibly and use it in a pure way so that it gives you the healing journey and not shows you some really horrific lessons. I have not, mushrooms is not something that I've used a lot ceremoniously. I probably have only used them 3 times that I can remember. Yeah, 3 times at the most. And all 3 times were very, very hard lessons that I had to learn. It wasn't a walk in the park. I didn't see beautiful visuals. It was the truth that needed to be unfolded in my life at that moment in time and space. And you would think if I had such a horrific experiences with them, like even the first and second time, why would I stop doing or why would I continue to do it? Well, it was because it was such a great breakthrough and I had Kundalini yoga to integrate that it became such an important part of what I needed to release. And there are many other curanderas and curanderos that are super famous in Mexico that we know a little bit about. I mean, we have Mayan healers. We have in Mexico City, there's a curandera known as Doña Pachita, and she carried out invisible operations. She saved those who no one else could save. She would be able to operate on them through her spiritual powers. There's other great healers like the Mayans, where I learned a lot that they could read the wind. They use the direction in which it blows to assess suffering. Or people like Don Lucio, who were initiated. He was initiated into the art of controlling weather conditions when they're struck by lightning. All of these different things that are powers or what is known as cities, they lie within us and they're dormant. But when you practice the work of ancestral healing, especially, and in correlation with Kundalini yoga, and if you're someone that has practiced plant medicine work, then together you're yourself going to open up to these magical gifts and powers that are within you. And they're not something that is weird or strange because we are becoming such a closed society now that we're all seeing how common they actually are. But we got to get through the witch's wound as women. And number 2 is we got to learn to use these relationships with these tools very responsibly, because Kundalini yoga literally can do the same thing that a psychedelic plant can do for you. Kundalini yoga works specifically on the pineal gland, on the hypothalamus, on the pituitary. These are all areas of the brain that when they're functioning, they secrete into what is known as the cave of Brahma. This is what I call the demystification of the spiritual mystical experience, because when you are meditating and chanting and you're creating these chemical reactions in the brain, what you're creating is this pool of energetic frequency in the brain, this area that is known as the cave of Brahma, that then connects you truly to the divine, to your own powers and your ability to be a healer or be your dharmic path, whatever that is. Not all of us are here to be healers. Not all of us are here to be therapists, but we're all in one way or another leading the way in our homes, especially as women, in our communities or in our business. And this work can carry through in all aspects of your life, especially in your business. So curanderismo is a form of healing that many of us can easily be afraid of because of the fear mongering that has gone around it. But also, it can also be something that we can awaken in us because it's something that our grandmothers or abuelitas practiced as well. And that when you actually do, if you're someone that's being called to be an energy healer or to cleanse in some way or form through energy, that is something that when you surrender and say yes to it, then guess what? You heal 7 generations before and 7 after you, especially from the blockage of not living out your life purpose because of what people might say or because of the horrible impact that it had on you in the past. And so in a nutshell, we want to look at the incredible benefits of all of this plant medicine work that can help us. But we also have to be very conscious and aware of these relationships and have a very important, powerful integration process to help us really make sense on how these plant medicines or what they came to teach us. And because of that, and because of the experience I've had, I'm really, really excited to continue to share much more knowledge and much more information about this and the connection that it has to our own ancestral healing. And so now I feel fully ready to announce and unveil to you what I've been working on for some months now. something that has always been missing something. And it wasn't until last week that I was able to finally surrender to understanding what that something is. So next week, as we get closer to the summer solstice portal, which is a very important day, this is why the ancestors meditated on that day, before and after practice ritual. I am now opening up registration to my upcoming 3-day, yes, 3-day virtual journey to the summer solstice event on reclaiming your sovereignty by learning how to rewire your brain, heal your nervous system from ancestral karmic patterns of emotional healing. So you're going to be able to spend 3 days with me, an hour and 45 minutes each evening. I'm making these as evening live events next week. June 21st is the summer solstice, the 22nd and the 23rd, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 3-day event so that you can experience my method, the AVI method, awareness, vitality, and integration to disrupt these ancestral karmic patterns. Each day, not only are you going to be receiving coaching and a ton of training from me, but you're also going to be receiving some pretty amazing tools. Just to name a few of the things that are going to be coming in your workbook are cheat sheets on how the ancestors communicate through your body. Specifically, we're going to be looking at teeth. I'm going to be giving you a beginner's guide in understanding Kundalini yoga meditation and spiritual psychotherapy for ancestral healing. You're going to get beginner's guide, introduction to psychedelic assisted psychotherapy and plant medicines. You're going to get a terminology cheat sheet and guide on the use of plant medicine for ancestral healing. You're going to get a cheat sheet on 3 simple 3-minute Kundalini exercises to increase energy so you can go beyond the pattern. You're going to get another cheat sheet on principles of forgiveness. We're going to be working through forgiveness these 3 days. You're going to get another sheet that's going to help you with the essential safety guidelines and precautions to keep in mind before, during, and after working with Kundalini meditation or psychedelic plant medicines. You're going to get another sheet, cultivating a sacred place, honoring your ancestral rituals and ceremonies. And you're going to get my 40-day sadhana practice to disrupt the pattern of addictive programming at the level of your DNA. So during those 3 days for an hour, 45 minutes, not only are you going to be integrating and experiencing these sacred practices, but you're also going to have a very supportive post 3-day system to actually follow step by step so that you yourself can learn how to disrupt these ancestral karmic patterns of emotional pain at the level of the DNA. So I'm announcing it to you all first. Registration is now open. You can go to www.veronicabarraganiam.com/summer solstice, and you can now register, and it is complimentary to all women. That's right, I am making it complimentary to all women. So not only can you register, but then you can send the link to your friends, to your comadres, to your sisters, to your mom, to all the women that you know are ready for this deep healing work. So click in the link on my bio, click the link that I just shared with you, veronicabarraganiam.com/summer solstice, and register. If you register today, especially, you'll be put inside of our Facebook closed group, and you'll receive this full workbook with all of these teachings by Monday, June 19th. Now, if you can't join us live during the 3 days, you are going to have a 24-hour virtual replay for those that for some reason can't join us live. So make sure that you still register so you can get those replays and you can be part of these 3 days of women coming together to heal, transform, and to disrupt the ancestral karma. And I'm even more excited because through this all, I'll be able to really share more about the Abuelitas, their guidance, as well as how plant medicine can assist you in your journey as well. So go to the link in my bio, go to the link below here in the comments, and get yourself registered. And next week, since Wednesday does fall on the summer solstice, I'll be going live a little bit earlier than usual, just to share with you the importance of the solstice and the things that you should be doing immediately to harness this energy for your own healing purposes. So I will see you again in my next video next week. And I will also see you, of course, in our 3-day live virtual. Have a blessed rest of your day, and I'll see you soon.